Hi and welcome to Oceania Weekly. I'm Stephanie Greenfield. About 80,000 people protested over the government's inaction over climate change in Auckland last Friday. The protesters linked arms to form a human chain at the point where sea levels are predicted to rise by 2 metres by 2160. Student strikers called on adults to march alongside them at the strike. The Auckland protest was attended by people of all ages, including 4 generations of family, striking together. Strike organisers said about 170,000 people around the country took part in Friday's action. More than 40 events were held across the country as part of an international movement sparked by Greta Thunberg.
Climate change will likely impact all our life and also all the life of our descendants. And if we want to have a livable future, we have to act now because very soon it's going to be too late.
We are literally, the ecosystems are dying, islands are flooding, people are literally in danger and losing their homes around the globe.
I have children and I'm worried about the future of the planet that we're leaving for them.
I have my 3 granddaughters with me. If we don't do something about climate change, they're not going to have a very good future.
We've got to act now. So I thought this would be a good first step to our future.
It's important for us now to make sure that we're not losing any more islands and peoples and cultures.
No action means no future.
There was a ceremony in Aotea Square in Auckland commemorating for the Seoul Recapturing on the 28th of September 1950. Korean War photos and the photos of life of North Korea are now exhibited in Aotea Square. They performed the Korean flag raising in front of the Korean government building, and Korean War veteran Mr. Wally Wyatt gave a short speech.
Unfortunately, there's only a few of us veterans left in the Auckland area, and most of them need a lot more notice to get themselves organised to get along to anything. I was a bit lucky, but I only just made it in the end. But I understand, as I said, what you are remembering. I've been back to Seoul 4 times since the Korean War, courtesy of the New Zealand government and the Korean government, and I've seen a lot of changes over that time. So anyway, thank you for inviting me here today, and I wish you all the best for the rest of your time in New Zealand.
The first Battle of Seoul was the North Korean invasion of South Korea during the start of the Korean War. It resulted in the capture of the capital by North Korean forces. The Second Battle of Seoul was a battle that resulted in the United Nations forces recapturing Seoul from the North Koreans on the 28th of September 1950. North Korea restricts all civil and political liberties, including freedom of expression, assembly, association, and religion. North Korea routinely uses arbitrary arrest and punishment of crimes, torture and custody, and executions to maintain fear and control over the population. Telangana Jagruthi New Zealand, TJNZ, a non-profit organisation which promotes the culture of migrants from Telangana, a state in southern India, started the 9-day Maha Bathukamma Floral Festival last Saturday at Mount Eden War Memorial Hall. The opening program was led by the organisation president, Ms. Jyoti Madam, and her team with the colourful cultural dances honouring the goddess of womanhood, as the festival is done for feminine facilitation. Among the invited guests were MPs Michael Wood, Priyanka Radhakrishnan, Dr. Parmjit Parmar, Kanwaljit Singh Bakshi, Auckland District Commander Karen Malthus, Jessica Wang from New Zealand Police, and many community leaders. The evening was filled with cultural dancing by the women dressed up in the traditional sari and jewellery. The festival represents cultural spirit of Telangana. Bathukamma is a beautiful flower stack arranged with different unique seasonal flowers, most of them with medicinal values, in 7 concentric layers of the shape of a temple. It means Mother Goddess come alive, and Goddess Maha or Life Giver is worshipped in the form of Bathukamma, the patron goddess of womanhood, Gari Devi. The TJNZ celebration will run for 9 days, and dancing will be done in 9 places around Auckland, including Hamilton. New Zealand's largest military airbase has been told to keep it down. The Environment Court ruled in favour of a property developer, which laid a noise complaint against the Whenuapai airbase. Defence Minister Ron Marks has slammed the decision, saying property development may now be a threat to our national security. The airbase has been in its Auckland location since World War II, while Neil Construction Limited bought land across from the base in 2015. However, the Environment Court found that the noise that comes from the base, particularly during engine testing in the evening hours, is excessive and in breach of the noise restrictions involved in the Resource Management Act. There are also concerns that if the military base has to move, that it would cost the taxpayer millions of dollars. The decision is not set in stone just yet, however, with the Defence Force having 20 days to lodge an appeal. The Australian Capital Territory has become the first jurisdiction in the nation to legalise recreational cannabis use. Lawmakers in the Territory passed the landmark bill last Wednesday, allowing adults to possess up to 50 grams of the drug and to grow 4 plants at home. Personal cannabis use remains prohibited elsewhere in Australia, but medicinal use was legalised in 2016. Recreational cannabis use is legal in countries including Canada, Spain, Uruguay, and several US states, including California. About 35% of Australians aged over 14 have used the drug in their lifetime, health authorities say. Under its legislation to come into effect on the 31st of January, it will remain illegal to sell cannabis and to consume it in public or around children. Solomon Islands' decision to switch allegiance from Taiwan to China was predetermined, a former Prime Minister says. Rick Ho said Prime Minister Manasseh Sogavare lied to Solomon Islanders and the international community when he promised the government would be leaving no stone unturned in considering the pros and cons of the move. Solomon Islands' 36-year relationship with Taiwan ended last week before the Solomons' Foreign Affairs Minister Jeremiah Manal and his Chinese counterpart formalised ties last Sunday. Mr. Ho said the Solomons had launched a formal process to consider the switch, and the government was to consider reports from 4 different review panels before deciding. The president of Nauru has told a meeting at the United Nations the Pacific views the climate crisis as a defining security issue of the century. Lionel Anemia, who was speaking on behalf of the Pacific Islands Forum, said Hurricane Dorian in the Bahamas was an example of the more frequent extreme weather events that will undermine the region's survival and viability. The President said building climate-resilient systems that support peace and stability will take a concerted international effort, and that the UN has an important role to play in this. He called on the UN to respond to the Pacific's call for it to urgently appoint a special representative on climate and security. Jetstar is planning to pull the plug on 5 regional New Zealand routes amid demand and fuel price-related turbulence for the budget carrier. The Qantas-owned airline is going to withdraw its Nelson Napier, New Plymouth and Palmerston North services from Auckland, as well as its Wellington-Nelson route from December. More than 1.3 million passengers have used the regional Q300 turboprop services since it started in December 2015, with 130 return flights currently operating each week during peak season. Jetstar passengers who have booked regional New Zealand flights beyond November 30 will be offered options, including a full refund. Australia won't be getting a long-term plan to cut its emissions anytime soon. United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has warned the climate emergency is a race we are losing and called for countries to lift their commitments to cut emissions. He said this is not a climate negotiation summit. You don't negotiate with nature. This is a climate action summit. Nearly 70 countries, about 2/5 of those signed up to the Paris Agreement, have indicated they will increase climate change. But Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison is holding fast to Australia's target of cutting emissions by 26 to 28% from 2005 levels by 2030. Fishing for snapper will be banned in South Australia from the 1st of November. The move, which the South Australian government said is to protect the popular species, is causing concern among recreational fishers and the charter boat industry. Primary Industry Minister Tim Wheatstone told the ban is necessary. Professional fishermen are shocked at the decision, but the South Australian government said it's supporting those affected by cutting the cost of commercial fishing licences in half. Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison has warned against creating needless anxiety in children about climate change. The Prime Minister says he always likes to make sure his own daughters, aged 10 and 12, have perspective and context on the issue. He said that he wants his children growing up in Australia to feel positive about their future, and he thinks it's important that we give them that confidence. Youth climate activist Greta Thunberg lambasted world leaders in her address to the UN summit last week. She said that people are suffering, people are dying, entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are at the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. Now we're going to cross over to Voice of America.
In one of the world's most populated cities, plastic bags choke life from polluted waterways. Now, local authorities move ahead with an initiative to ban their use.
Say no to plastic bags, say no to open littering. So hopefully, with appropriate public support, we should be able to enforce this ban.
Murtaza Wahab speaks for the government of Sindh, a southern region in Pakistan leading an initiative in Karachi to combat the plastics threatening its ecosystem.
It's an initiative for the betterment of the environment, and environment is not just for the government, for the rich or the poor. It is for everyone. So I think it is our battle, it is our cause, and all of us should work together to help save Mother Earth.
Officials say because plastic bags clog drains, any rainfall may flood the city.
Some of the material that we are consuming, like salt coming out of sea, it contains plastic. The plastic also become part of the air. So it is generally considered that human beings at present are taking about the 5 grams of plastic in a week.
Mohammed Moazzam Khan is Pakistan's technical advisor for the World Wildlife Fund. He says increased plastics in our bodies raise the likelihood of cancer, but that curbing their use may not cure the environment.
If we are talking about replacing plastic with paper, we are having more impact on the environment than because of the plastic, because paper will come from the trees, and we definitely for trees mean that we will be destroying forest.
The lack of other options worries some in the business community.
इसका जो है अब जब बंद कर रहे हैं तो इसका कोई मुतबादल तो होगा ना इनके पास भाई हम ये करेंगे गाहक जो है हाथों में तो नहीं लेके जा सकते किसी ना किसी चीज़ में तो डाल के लेके जाएगा ना चीज़ को.
Karachi's plastic bag ban goes into effect Tuesday, October 1st. Arash Arabasadi, VOA News, Washington.
Thank you for joining us here at Oceania Weekly. We are going to take a 4-week break, and I'll see you back here in November.